A global pandemic, a racial divide leading to a national push for change. 2020 has seen a lot already. And while the nation's heart is fractured, there are also incredible stories of people uniting.
I want to bring people together, and that was my goal.
From peaceful music on the streets to a message of togetherness for the next generation.
So when you put a team together, you get teamwork, you get unity, you get trust.
We were inspired to share powerful examples of unity in our community, some messages that have been shared for decades.
That day, more than anything, it was important to me as I looked at people, black and white, would come from all over America to say that this nation has to change.
That are still shared today. Good evening, and thank you for joining us for this very special series to unite our community. I'm Wayne Dawson. The year 2020 is going to be remembered as a year of drastic change, from the ongoing coronavirus pandemic to rallies and sometimes rioting in the streets protesting racial justice. With that in mind, we here at Fox 8 are striving to find uplifting stories of togetherness. We are calling it Voices of Unity. It's an image burned into our minds. The death of George Floyd, a tragedy that sparked rioting, passionate protesting, and outrage by people of all races all around the world. Out of Floyd's death is born a movement, a cry against racial injustice, police brutality, and systemic racism. A cry under the mantra, Black Lives Matter. Danielle Sitnor is the president of the Cleveland NAACP. When you look at what's happening right now, talk about the importance of unity.
The marches, the rallies, the events that are happening, we have many more white folks who are reaching out saying, what can I do? How can I help?
Well, first and foremost, Wayne, hate should never be tolerated in any form.
James Pesh represents the unity within the movement. He's the director of the Anti-Defamation League.
And right now, when it comes to supporting Black lives across this nation, Black lives matter. And it's our job to partner with our Black brothers and sisters, their organizations, lift up their voices.
Some observers say a chief characteristic of this movement is its youthfulness, young people pushing for change.
We have come to that point now where injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere.
The Reverend Dr. E.T. Cavanis marched with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the nation's first civil rights movement more than 60 years ago. Dr. Cavanis, how does the civil rights movement of the 1960s compare to what's happening right now?
There's always been a contingency of Caucasians, of people who really understood right and wrong.
He then reminded me Dr. King was in his 20s when he stepped forth to lead the struggle.
And I think it's time for all of us to understand that we're in this together. And as I say so often, Dr. Martin Luther King, either we'll live together as brothers and sisters or we'll perish as fools.
What is it going to take to change hearts and to change minds?
I think we're already seeing hearts and minds being changed, right? We're seeing it in the rallies that are occurring every week throughout this country. The question now is, how do we capitalize on that moment to create real, lasting policy changes, to create that change that's going to last for generations, not just in marches, but in our laws?
We're seeing a lot of people who now are taking a moment to understand more, who are taking a moment to be able to own a piece of the tragedies that have taken place, and then also people who are owning a piece of responsibility for the solutions. And I think that's the most important part.
If folk do not understand how imperative it is for us to learn how to live together, then we're going to be in deep trouble.
Next, from healthcare to education to economics, a recent study has revealed the worst cities for African American women to live, work, and thrive here in the United States. And sadly, Cleveland is at the top of the list. Our Jennifer Jordan explains a group of young women is now jumpstarting an aggressive campaign in hopes of wiping out these troubling statistics.
changing the way the nation views and treats Black women. It is a daunting challenge Chi-Chi and Kemera and Bethany Studenik are willing to take. In 2018, the former colleagues created Enlightened Solutions, a Northeast Ohio workplace advocacy firm that focuses on belonging and authenticity in the fields of diversity and inclusion.
Bethany and I had multiple conversations about some of the career stagnation that we and other young millennial women and individuals have faced. So it was either being blackballed for a job or being passed over for promotions.
Their experiences reaffirmed in a Bloomberg City Lab article, which revealed Cleveland as being the worst city for outcomes for Black women across all industries.
At first you hear a statistic like that and you're like, no, there has to be other reasons. No, they really dug deep in this research.
Among metropolitan cities with at least 100,000 Black women, the Bloomberg City Lab study ranked Cleveland at the bottom of the list for education, second to last for economics, with Milwaukee being the worst, and second to last for healthcare, with Pittsburgh being the least favored.
Doctors tend to disproportionately not believe Black women that they're in pain, or they prescribe pain medications at a lower rate.
Bethany and Chi-Chi getting this information firsthand through a recently launched campaign called Project Noir, gaining tangible knowledge from the experiences of Black women here in Cleveland. Courtney Otrix, a social media influencer, was brought on board to help get the word out about Project Noir. The wife and mother of 4 knows firsthand about the challenges Black women face, one of the many reasons she left corporate America and started the popular blog Courtney Covers Cleveland.
I feel like a lot of time it's me just trying to justify who I am or overly prove who I am, my background, why I am qualified for certain positions.
And now the Pressure Campaign, taking the responses from the survey and knocking on the doors of Cleveland's power players.
Business leaders, nonprofit leaders, managers, everybody from top to bottom to understand that they need to invest in the value and voices of Black women and femmes in Cleveland.
If I need a selfish take on it, if Black women are doing better, I'm going to be doing better too.
And make sure that we make this a better place for the Black women who live here, because we're awesome.
In Cleveland, Jennifer Jordan, Fox 8 News.
In this next Voices of Unity spotlight, it's one man's goal shifting the way Cleveland is known around the world. And it all starts with being kind to each other. He tells reporter Maya Belai it was an act of courageous kindness dating all the way back to World War II that's now being paid forward.
Does a city known by many names have room for one more?
We thought that why can't Cleveland become Kindland?
Another kind of land with an ambitious goal. Document 1 million acts of kindness by the end of next year. Perhaps the most unforgettable example is best told by Stuart Musinski, the man behind this mission.
I wouldn't be here, my children wouldn't be here today if not for an act of kindness. And it goes back to the outbreak of the Holocaust. The Nazis marched into my parents' hometown in Poland in 1939.
Stewart says his father, mother, and grandmother were forced to live in hiding.
September of 1941, my father went to Warsaw to some friends of the family and wrote them a note, slipped it under their door, said, "We have no place else to go. Would you hide us?" And that began the story of the Teskey family hiding my parents.
His family managed to get false papers under different names to avoid suspicion by the Gestapo, the police of Nazi Germany.
You know, the Germans were very, very meticulous.
But it was a teenager's courage in 1941 that set the course for Stewart's life.
This 16-year-old Polish maid named Jadzia opened the door, just a crack. They said, "Gestapo, let us in."
She stalled just long enough for Stewart's family to blend in.
My parents ran up a spiral staircase to the top floor of the building, and my father said, let's embrace and kiss as lovers, and maybe they'll think we're just celebrating New Year's. And sure enough, the Gestapo, with their dogs, with their rifles drawn, they went right past them.
But Yaja paid a price for her bravery.
The Nazis took her, arrested her, and they put her on a death train. She broke the barbed wire and she jumped from the train.
Stewart's family eventually made it to the U.S. and called Cleveland home. They kept in touch with the families who saved their lives, as well as the one-time maid, Yaja. When Stewart learned her son, Christoph, had stage 4 pancreatic cancer, he said he had to help.
We were all able to find an anonymous donor to cover the first 5 months. And then all of a sudden, it was up to me. Okay, now I owe my life to this family. So I need to return the kindness. That's how kindness works.
One day at a time.
Stewart and Christoph talk often with the help of a family translator. Goodwill coming full circle.
We love you and we are supporting you.
All these years later.
We were all saved through multiple acts of kindness, and we need to be part of the solution that spreads that within our community and within our world.
In Cleveland, or maybe Kindland, Maya Belai, Fox 8 News.
Music can be a healing force, but can also be a uniting force.
I love Cleveland, and I love Bach, the music that I play, and I decided to combine the two in a unique way.
Coming up, a local musician's mission to bring hope and joy to Northeast Ohio. And it's one of the reasons Cleveland rocks, the Rock Hall's strong message in the fight for racial equality. As we continue our Voices of Unity series, we all know music can heal, but it also has the power to unify. Our Alex Stokes has more on the mission of a local musician, including the music video he hopes will create harmony in Cleveland.
Cleveland Orchestra cellist Alan Harrell serenaded the city of Cleveland, tugging at her heartstrings, just as he did a few months ago.
I had the idea for a while. I love Cleveland, and I love Bach, the music that I play, and I decided to combine the two in a unique way.
Then Cleveland's heart fractured along with the country's.
And then the protest happened like at the end of May, and I decided, I have to get down there.
Alan's simple idea to highlight the city shifted in the face of national and social tensions into an effort to bring the city together.
He traveled with his cello, playing at landmarks, in parks, and on public transportation. Planning to film mostly solo, Harrell's project evolved once again when he saw a group of protesters in University Circle.
And I decided to introduce myself and say, I'm a cellist in the Cleveland Orchestra. Can I play my piece for you? And they were great.
While downtown, he came across several Cleveland police officers, another group he wanted to play for.
I remember one of them said, kind of under his breath, he was like, I hope this isn't an anti-police video. And I said, absolutely not. I want to bring people together.
For Harrell, the pandemic has only exacerbated the social dissonance, but he also wanted to thank those who have been putting their lives on the line. The choice of Bach's first cello suite, he says, was to bring hope and joy.
He wrote some of the most beautiful and some of the most peaceful music that we have in the repertoire.
Harrell's message of unity is one that surrounds him at work.
We come from all over the country, all over the world. We play different instruments. We have different parts on our stand. But whenever we perform, what you hear is not cacophony, but harmony.
Harmony, he says, he hopes can be achieved in the community by embracing our differences as strengths.
I knew Cleveland was beautiful, but I learned more that its people are beautiful too.
Alex Stokes, Fox 8 News.
We turn now to the reason Cleveland rocks. As we just showed you, music is a means of bringing people together, but it's also a way of conveying important messages. And that's what the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is doing with its latest exhibit, focusing on the fight for racial equality.
Hey, we're in the middle of a revolution.
The exhibit is called It's Been Said All Along, Voices of Rage, Hope, and Empowerment. So, what's in a name?
Everything is in that name.
Rock Hall curator Waka Onwusa.
It's been said all along, speaks to a number of things. Number one, the Rock Hall has definitely been sharing stories of social justice and equality throughout the museum.
The exhibit features 16 artists along with dozens of artifacts.
One of my favorite is James Brown. Absolutely love him, grew up listening to him. We have a jumpsuit that he wore, but not only that, we have handwritten lyrics to I don't want nobody to give me nothing. Open the door, I'll get it myself. I'll get it myself. And that song just speaks so many volumes. We focus a lot on Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, but this is another anthem that James Brown loudly proclaimed during the 60s and 70s.
Also on display are artifacts from Diana Ross, Marvin Gaye, Jimi Hendrix, and Public Enemy.
We have Fight the Power, written by Public Enemy, Chuck D, that's on display. We know that that anthem has been revisited since this new civil rights movement of 2020.
The Rock Hall has always been a melting pot, bringing people together through the vehicle of music. And that's the unifying message behind this very important exhibit.
Music and social justice movements are married and paired together. Music is definitely a part of our culture and how we understand each other. It's really the one unifying force that all people can speak. But to understand the messages, to share stories, and to continue to pass those stories of equity along to the next generation.
Music, it tells the story. And yes, it's been said all along, voices of rage, but also voices of hope and empowerment. A unified voice, crying out, seeking justice for all.
Music is what brings us together. This is how we educate. So you get a social justice message in about 3 minutes and 46 seconds, and you can understand the intent of that artist who's speaking out for a community. We need folks to be hyped up about equity. We need folks to be hyped up about this humanity issue right now.
Coming together with one mission. Still to come tonight in our Voices of Unity special, how a local organization is not only creating a healthier community, but is also unifying their neighborhood through food. And they may be from different races, religions, and backgrounds, but they all share one common goal, the important lessons for the next generation on the baseball diamond. Tonight, we are continuing to highlight voices of unity across Northeast Ohio. We all know a lack of fresh food can be a barrier to better health. But what if there's little fresh food in your community? A woman and a group of children are working together to solve that problem in the city of East Cleveland. Our Maya Belai introduces us to people uniting behind Food Strong.
If the measure you give is the measure you get back, then there's no wonder why this garden is overflowing with treasure.
So here in our learning garden, we are growing eggplants, peppers, tomatoes, corn. You want to make sure you nourish your body and your mind, okay?
This section of EC Grows Community Garden is made by the hands of children under the eye of Sarah Continenza, the nonprofit founder of Food Strong.
There's so many things that go on at school, in the community, and at home that can be very stressful for these kids. So it's a great opportunity for them to just get their hands in the soil, unwind.
Created in 2018, Food Strong works to educate and empower communities through food. The group sells part of their harvest at the farmers market across the street. The funds go back to nourishing the garden, but it's the children tending to the soil who say they're growing too.
Gardening really helps you cope with a lot of stuff, so it's just be nice to get out the house and go garden.
Coming together with one mission.
We know that food is life. It can be medicine for you or poison.
Harvesting a healthier life, one crop at a time. In East Cleveland.
You take them home, you guys can cook at home with them.
Maya Belai, Fox 8 News.
From food to sports, it's the world's playground, and for some, a distraction from reality. But sports are also a way for people to come together, united for a common goal. And for a local baseball league, there are important lessons to be learned. Summer baseball, a slice of normality during an unprecedented time of turbulence. 40 teams, hundreds of players, all with a love for the game.
It's the great equalizer. Sports has always been the ultimate equalizer.
This is umpire Johnny Williams' 8th year calling balls and strikes.
It brings these young men together. What you're looking at is a team that forms together, a diversity of players from different communities, different incomes, the whole nine, that actually then come together who are looking for a unified. So when you put a team together, you get teamwork.
These young men are learning about a lot more than just a game of baseball. They're learning about the game of life and how it should be played.
We all just play as a team, and we don't see a difference in each other.
Nice hit, kid, let's go!
Edward Ramos is a 16-year-old of Latin descent.
We're all the same, we're just trying to play the game.
Justin Malloy lives in Strongsville.
As a team, it doesn't matter like what color or anything you are, but in life it feels like a lot of people are. That matters to some people.
Indeed, the expressions of sports unity are being seen even at the professional level. Players kneeling in support of Black Lives Matter, a call for an end to racial injustice and inequality.
Everyone has the common goal of winning and losing together, regardless of where you're from, regardless of where your politics may be. You're high-fiving that person next to you. Everyone's unified. Everyone has a common goal.
These stories we are sharing tonight are part of a movement that began nearly 60 years ago.
As I looked at people, black and white, would come from all over America to say that this nation has to change.
A look at history through the eyes of someone who was there, why the March on Washington still holds a powerful message today. Our message tonight is unity, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s iconic and historical speech 57 years ago still resonates today, unifying people in the fight for human rights and social justice. Rare footage from that day, taken by the late Congressman Louis Stokes, takes us back to the March on Washington. Our Alex Stokes shares his and another Cleveland icon's thoughts on our country then and now.
On August 28, 1963, at the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. shared his dream for an end to racism, equality, and the ultimate unification of all. More than half a century later, we take a rare Technicolor look back at the fight for inclusivity and justice and where we are on that path today.
I was a part of that march that day and had the chance to use a little 8mm camera to photograph that experience, that day, that march.
That's the late Congressman Louis Stokes, my grandfather, talking about video he shot 57 years ago. As a young civil rights attorney, he traveled to D.C. with his family for the March on Washington. My mother, Lori Stokes, interviewed him in 2013 on the 50th anniversary.
That day, more than anything, it was important to me as I looked at people, black and white, would come from all over America to say that this nation has to change, that we can no longer endure racism and discrimination and segregation in the greatest country in the world.
King's I Have a Dream speech resonated, but wasn't realized.
You have to acknowledge the fact that while we've made progress, we still have a long way to go.
We are custodians and implementers of the dream.
Reverend Dr. Otis Moss worked with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in Cincinnati before becoming a powerful voice in Cleveland. He says his friend Dr. King devoted much time here registering black voters.
Dr. King had a major anchor in Cleveland.
Truly never before have I ever known the full meaning of the words, God bless America.
That time paid off when the nation saw the first black mayor of a major U.S. city elected, Carl Stokes.
I'm inspired by Black Lives Matter. I see the student movement. I see SNCC. I see John Lewis. And to some extent, we see ourselves 60 years ago.
But we want to be free now.
When Lewis spoke on the 50th anniversary,
He was talking to young people who were his age then, telling them to be like he was, to go back in your districts and be concerned about agitating, as he put it.
COVID-19 will make it harder to physically attend this year's March on Washington.
But we can go there in our prayers and our songs and in our encouragement, and especially with our votes.
In Cleveland, Alex Stokes, Fox 8 News.
No doubt the year 2020 is going to be remembered as a year of drastic change. We hope tonight's stories about people of different backgrounds, ages, races, and religions inspire you to make a change to unify your community. For more information and to share your stories, go to our website, fox8.com. Until next time, have a great night.